two similar stories.
The overwhelming feeling I feel when I think about my abortion is relief.
Very different endings.
I was only told in the abortion narrative of what I would gain and not what it would cost me or what I would lose.
Two women share their stories of having an abortion and now sit on opposite ends of a hotly debated issue.
Abortion care doesn't have to be traumatic.
I don't believe that I had the moral authority to take that life.
We have an in-depth look at abortion care in Colorado as the Supreme Court appears poised to overturn Roe v. Wade. Thank you for watching Denver 7 News at 6 tonight. I'm Shannon Ogden.
And I'm Jacqueline Allen. It's a polarizing issue with often very little middle ground. Tonight, we have a 360 in-depth conversation trying to find some of that middle ground on abortion.
You're going to hear from two women, both who have had an abortion. Now, one now dedicates her life to fighting for the right to have an abortion, and the other regrets her decision to have that abortion, and she wishes she could go back in time.
And we have 360 in-depth team coverage tonight, taking you live to protests currently happening in Denver, as well as what Coloradans need to know moving forward.
All right, we begin with Colette Bordelon and the story of those two women with two very different views. Colette?
Very different views on a similar story. And while the debate over access to abortion continues across the country tonight, women who have had abortions in the past are caught in the middle, and they don't always agree on the issue either.
My whole life changed in that very moment.
Two women and two stories.
During a pandemic, really? That was my first thought.
Both have asked themselves lots of the same questions.
All of the possibilities, all of the consequences, what would happen to my future.
How much would it cost to raise a child right now? I couldn't do it.
Selena Nahar was 25 when she found out she was pregnant.
The overwhelming feeling I feel when I think about my abortion is relief.
And Rachel Flick had an abortion at 18 years old.
One of the most powerful motivators for me was fear.
Even though they made the same choice, the two feel very differently looking back.
I was only told in the abortion narrative of what I would gain and not what it would cost me or what I would lose. That was never part of the story.
One calling it a regret.
Not just financially, but I think physically and emotionally, I would not be as healthy of a person as I am right now.
While the other says it allowed her to pursue what she wanted in life.
Abortion care doesn't have to be traumatic. It's societal stigma that traumatizes people.
But they don't tell you what the experience of abortion will do to your heart, to your soul, to your mind.
At the root of this story, the two disagree.
I'm not in favor of abortion, and definitely not for a woman in my circumstances.
Whether or not she regrets her decision to get an abortion, should that influence whether or not somebody else is able to make that decision for themselves?
But in their words, they have for each other.
I hope that she is able to have the family that she wants.
Is a compassion and understanding they share.
I would love the opportunity to hear her perspective. I would love to hear her experience. I would love to hold space for her.
Two seats at different ends of the same table, connected by a decision that continues to divide the nation. Flick acknowledged how difficult and expensive pregnancies are. She knows that firsthand, now having kids of her own. Meanwhile, Nahar, who works with Cobalt, the largest abortion rights organization in Colorado, wants to remind people abortions are still happening in Colorado. Live in the newsroom, Colette Bordelon, Denver 7.
All right, Colette, thank you. All day long, we've seen people gathering out at the state capitol. This is video actually from about an hour ago from Air Tracker 7. Most of these people protesting the Supreme Court posed to overturn Roe v. Wade. Denver 7's Patrick Perez continues our team coverage tonight at 6. And Patrick, dozens of people still out there we can see behind you.
Yeah, the crowd has definitely grown since we last saw you, Shannon, at 5 o'clock. Most of the people, I will say, are now on the Capitol steps hearing from some speakers, but there are certainly some groups down here trying to get attention from some of these drivers on Lincoln, both and on the anti-abortion side and the pro-choice side. We also have police officers in the distance making sure everything here goes smoothly. This is the second of 3 rallies scheduled for today. The first one began at noon. We were there for that too. And the third one is scheduled for 6:30 today. The majority today are protesting against the contents in that leaked U.S. Supreme Court draft opinion. It shows a willingness to overturn Roe versus Wade. And while the impact wouldn't be felt here in Colorado because of the recently passed Reproductive Health Equity Act, at least for now, the lasting implications are concerning, this pro-choice crowd says, for women seeking abortion nationwide.
So let's make it very clear here. Abortion rights is a racial justice issue.
The decision hasn't even been made official yet, and we already know what it feels like in our bones.
Yep.
We can already see this decision for what it is.
And here's another live look at this crowd. We are expecting them to eventually make their way back down here and get some more attention of these drivers on Lincoln. But no doubt, these will not be the last rallies that we see here in Denver at the state capitol as we wait to see what happens with the Supreme Court's final decision in this case. Shannon.
All right, Patrick Perez at the Capitol. Thank you very much, Patrick. Colorado Congressman Doug Lamborn shares the thought of a lot of people in our state on the other side of this issue. In a statement, the Republican congressman says overturning Roe v. Wade would return the highly contentious issue of abortion back to the states for elected representatives to decide. He says returning it to the states would let at least the socially conservative states of this country regulate or prohibit it.
Let's dig a little deeper into the law here in Colorado. With or without Roe v. Wade, Colorado allows abortions. That right was codified into law this legislative session, but that doesn't mean things can't change in the future. Denver 7 political reporter Megan Lopez joins us live. And Megan, you've looked into policy details, and there are efforts at change on both sides.
Right, so there are some short and long-term potential changes to Colorado's law when it comes to abortions. Some want even more access in the state. Others want to do away with abortions entirely. In the end, though, it will all come down to the voters.
It was short, the celebration by abortion access advocates, when Governor Jared Polis signed the Reproductive Health Equity Act into law. Short because one day shy of 1 month later, a leaked U.S. Supreme Court draft decision likely means the end to Roe versus Wade. But this moment and that decision is exactly what these advocates were bracing for.
It's why we as legislators here in Colorado took proactive steps in order to ensure and protect reproductive health care options in the state of Colorado.
But that was a statutory change, meaning lawmakers or voters could undo it with a simple majority vote.
Very much linked to kind of the political future of the state, of who's in control. So the more secure option is to move to a constitutional amendment.
Which is exactly what abortion access advocates are aiming for next. Cobalt is one of a few groups working on a ballot question to codify that access into the state's constitution. It would also change the state's funding laws.
In 1984, we passed an amendment that said no state funding can be used for abortions. So we really think that this is a negative issue and it needs to be fixed.
But that ballot question likely won't come until 2024. This year, anti-abortion groups are working on a measure of their own for voters. Initiative 56 would ban abortions at all stages of pregnancy except for a few rare circumstances like to save a mother's life. Supporters are now in the process of collecting signatures to officially get it on the November ballot. Juliana Day.
It was such a great way to assess what the feelings of the people in the state.
Ran an unsuccessful 2020 ballot question to ban late-term abortions. She knows the uphill battle ahead for this year's initiative. Still, she's hopeful.
This creates a lot of excitement in the pro-life community, no doubt about it.
She's not sure this ballot question will be successful, but says it's about educating people.
So little by little, we're changing the hearts and the minds of the people.
That ballot question and the Supreme Court decision also come during an important midterm election year.
There's an argument that this would mobilize both progressives and conservatives.
And there's calls for Congress to act, but again, it would depend on who's in control after the midterms.
So Governor Jared Polis and 16 other governors from across the country sent a letter to the leaders of Congress today urging them to pass the Women's Health Protection Act. That's a bill that was introduced in Congress last year. It's already passed the House, but it's been stuck in the Senate. The Democrats in the Senate say that they're not confident that they have the votes right now to get it passed, and some don't even want to try to change the filibuster rules really to even try to pass that. So right now, that congressional bill will stay stuck in the Senate. I'm live. Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
All right, thank you, Megan. And today we spoke to Governor Polis about this issue. He says Colorado will remain a place for women to make their own choice.
To me, this is always something that should be decided between a person, their doctor, their faith, and not kind of this overreach of government that decides this very intimate decision about when or how to have a family for people.
And state Republicans have mostly focused on calling for the person who leaked these documents to be found and investigated. State Representative Ron Hanks says the leaker is the greatest threat to our legal system.
In Colorado already is seeing an increase in people seeking care here from more abortion restrictive states. We spoke to 2 different women's health centers today, seeing an increase.
What we're seeing is that on some days up to 20% of our patients are coming from Texas.
Influx of specifically Texas patients, but we've also seen Kansas, Oklahoma, Georgia, New Mexico, Wyoming.
As you heard there, Colorado has seen a steady increase of people coming from out of state seeking an abortion. Numbers from the State Department of Health show 1,500 people came from out of state in 2021 for an abortion. That number increased from 1,200 the year before. Our 360 in-depth coverage continues right now on thedenverchannel.com. There we have more reaction, as well as Chief Justice John Roberts' probe into just how this draft opinion was leaked.
Weighing much needed affordable housing
I lost my house to a short-term rental
against wildlife preservation.
It really does come down to the survival of the bighorn sheep.
It's a debate happening in the high country. We lay out both sides.
A few showers and storms possible tonight, then cool and rainy on Wednesday when we hit 80 degrees again ahead in your full forecast.
We're less than 90 minutes from the puck dropping at Ball Arena. We're live as the Avalanche begin their quest for the Cup.